All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Lauren Yildirim. I'm the Chief of Staff and Vice President at JustWorks. JustWorks is an HR tech company whose mission is to level the playing field for startups, entrepreneurs, founders, and small businesses. We build products and services designed to streamline all of the back office operations for small and medium-sized businesses. So think about things like payroll, benefits, HR, compliance, all the things that entrepreneurs don't really want to spend their time on, but they have to. We tackle all of that for them so that they can focus on what really matters, which is running and growing the businesses that they're really passionate about. Earlier this year, JustWorks became a founding level partner for Angel City. And I know I speak for JustWorks. Everyone at JustWorks, when I say we're so incredibly excited about this partnership. Even though we are New York based, we're really excited to be supporting an LA team. And we were really drawn to Angel City because we felt like the organization was so values aligned with JustWorks. In the same way that Angel City is committed to leveling the playing field for women in sports, JustWorks is really committed to doing the same for entrepreneurs and women business owners. And as part of this partnership, we're actually going to be supporting the Player 22 program, which Angel City started, which supports former athletes as they look to make career pivots and start their own businesses. We are going to have 2 grantees in this year's Player 22 cohorts that we are going to work closely with and support as they navigate early entrepreneurship. And these kinds of programs and supporting entrepreneurs really fuels everything that we do at JustWorks. It's what really motivates us. So I'm really excited to be representing JustWorks and to be here and to support this program. And in the spirit of Player 22, we've brought together these 3 women who are no strangers to career pivots, to entrepreneurship, and to the world of women's sports. And they are going to be here today sharing some valuable lessons that they've learned along the way that we can all draw from. And it feels particularly very apt to be having this conversation right now, considering the context of an incredible few weeks for women's sports more broadly. And it's also very exciting to be having this conversation with Christen, who has been so foundational to increasing the valuation and visibility of women's sports in the US. So before we kick things off, one just quick housekeeping item. We're actually going to do audience Q&A at the end. So if you think of any questions, hold them. We'll bring a mic to you at the end, and you can ask any one of the panelists. But to kick things off, I'd love everyone to just share a little bit about yourself, what you do, and just like a quick pitch on what your company does. And maybe, Christen, we'll start with you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having us here today. My name is Christen. I'm a forward on Angel City. I played on the U.S. Women's National Team for over a decade, and I am a co-founder and co-CEO of my business, Re-Inc. We exist to reimagine the way that women are seen and experienced in sport, and we do that through content, community, and commerce. I think through my time playing, we learned, a lot of us as athletes, that there's a lot more potential in the business of women's sports and how all the pieces are working together, and how the investment can breed this next level of professional women's sports for so many people. So through our business, we work in creating stories and products, and really trying to change the narrative around women's sports. So it's something that is authentic to us as players. Our community, we've known all along, is so engaged, and we've always felt as athletes very close to our community. And now we have this opportunity to kind of bridge the gap between kind of the field and the stadium and bring everybody together, and as a community and as a collective, fight for the things that we care about, because women's sports, as we all know, is so much more than sports, right? And the values that the audience has transcends the pitch, and we fight for them together. And so that's what our community does. We bring people together through sports to reimagine the world.
Yeah.
Thanks. Rachel?
My name is Rachel Quon. I'm the head of operations at Just Women Sports. Just Women Sports is a digital media platform covering 100% women's sports 100% of the time. So our vision, founded by Haley Rosen, who also played at Stanford, was that everything you see on the men's side, we need to build on the women's side for sports. So we may take for granted on the men's side, being able to find where games are going to be played, schedules, stats, all of that, betting, being able to buy your favorite player's jersey. We believe we need to build that all on the women's side as well. So that's what our mission is today.
Awesome.
Amen. Amen to betting. Hi, everybody. How's it going? I'm Karen Cahn. I'm the founder and CEO of IFundWomen. IFundWomen is the go-to funding marketplace for women-owned businesses. we do exactly what our name says, which is pretty cool, and great for our SEO. So, so I basically get the pleasure and honor of helping women and men co-founders, but people who are largely women, start their businesses every day. And I won't say I've seen it all, because we've been doing this only for 8 years, but I've seen a lot. And I'm excited to be here to share trends, to share, best practices, and all of these things I experienced myself. A second-time startup founder. My first startup was a spectacular failure. I'll talk about that later. And I came from corporate. I guess Google, is that corporate? Is that considered corporate?
Yeah.
I'm super happy to be here. And IFundWomen is the platform that is running the Player 22 program with JustWorks and ACFC, which is an honor. It's our second program with ACFC and JustWorks. And it's bigger and better. It's still going on. So by the way, if you know any retired athletes, specifically soccer players, who have started businesses or want to start business, the application's still open. We are over 6,000 applications, by the way.
Wow.
Which is, by the way, it's very close to the most we've gotten.
Yeah.
And it's that's a lot of applications. So whoever's watching out there in internet land, I don't even know if this is being streamed. Putting a plug in. Apply for a grant.
Karen, we're going to stick with you for a second. So we recently did a nationwide survey, and we found that 6 out of 10 employed adults actually are interested in starting their own business, but we know that many of those people never actually take the leap to do it. And oftentimes people can have a good idea, they might even have access to capital, but they're waiting for something to kind of give them that push. And I think often it's really encouraging and helpful for people to hear a little bit about people who are further along in their entrepreneurial journey and the fact that they never had all of the things come together, they just kind of got started. And so my question for you is, do you think it's easier to start a business today versus 5 years ago? Why or why not?
So that's a great question. So having a business means you have customers and revenue. Most people, most entrepreneurs, and I was one of them, when you're starting your first business, you have an idea, you have a dream, you have a passion, you have a drive, and you're like, I'm gonna start a business. So is it easier now than it was, let's just say 5, 8 years ago when I started IFundWomen, to technically start a business? 100%. Products like JustWorks, products like Squarespace and Wix, and there are so many ways that people can start a business because of all the SaaS solutions that are out there that weren't available, even 5, 8 years ago, right? And they're less expensive and more accessible, and you don't have to be a developer, et cetera. So it's easier to found a company than ever before. There's more resources, there's more videos on the internet, there's more, there's IFundWomen where you can come and get coaching and startup knowledge and all the things. So technically, yes, but I would argue that it's much harder to start a real business where you have customers paying you for your product or service than ever before, because the internet is bigger than ever before. There's so much competition. There's so much noise. It is so hard to break through. So that's my answer.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, at some point during all of your careers, you've had to make a pretty big pivot. So I'm wondering if you can each share what's been the biggest or most important career pivot you've had to make, and what was that experience like? Maybe Christen, we'll start with you.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if I ever even framed anything as making a pivot, because I think the way I look at it is just like the ebbs and flow of life. And you're kind of on one journey that leads to the next, right? So I think when I think the most about hard moments in my career, there was, honestly, it was the first year I was ever a professional player in the United States. I graduated in 11, so it was 2011, and I played my first professional year in the WPS, which was the Women's Professional Soccer League at the time. And I played one season. It was 6 months long, and for the other 6 months, you're unpaid and unemployed. And at the end of the 6 months, the league folded. It was the second women's professional league to fold. And most of the top players in the country were in some way on the U.S. women's national team, and I was not. And most of the players that were not at that level just retired, right? And we lost a ton of talent when that happened. And I remember I woke up to an email that said, the league has folded and your job is gone. And I was like, wow, that's a peaceful morning. And I think I had, because of the way that the transfer windows work in women's sports or in sports in soccer and global soccer, I had 6 days to decide if I wanted to go play in Scandinavia, which was the only window that was open, or retire, or take a year off, which is basically retiring. And so I packed my bags and I left. And I went and I signed for a tiny club in Gothenburg, Sweden. And I think there's a whole long story to it. But I think I had a very hard time in college and in that first year where I was very, success oriented. And I was really anxious to play for the U.S. Women's National Team. And that was like the goal, right? And I felt on the periphery of that. And I lost my joy in what I was doing. And so when I got that email and I made my decision, I was like, I'll never make the national team. I'm going out to Sweden, and I'm just going to play for a year and enjoy it. And of course, the irony is it was the scenic route, and within 3 months, I got my first call up for the U.S. Women's National Team, which we were just talking about outside, because the then women's coach was Swedish, so she was actually there and watched me play. And it is the scenic route, of course, it's the long route. And I think the most interesting thing that I learned was that when I was able to let go of like that intense drive to succeed, success flowed naturally. And I think so much of my life from that point, from maybe that pivot, was that lesson, was that like you can hold on to the things that you want so tightly, and there's so much power in just releasing it and believing in what kind of your journey is and how one thing leads to the next. And I'm an active player for Angel City. I'm recovering from an ACL injury, and I also don't see my soccer career as the end of anything. I see it as the beginning, and that's why as I continue to play, I have started this business, and I've started to tackle some of the issues that I face as a player through a different lens, because when I was having this dream to represent my country and play in World Cups, I never imagined that that wasn't like the ultimate goal of my life. But what happened is we won World Cups, and we have success, and you just continue to look up at the next challenge. And I think for me, really, soccer is the beginning. It is the platform that allows me to do what I think I was really put on this earth to do.
Did you feel like you were able to maintain that, or were there times where you got kind of pulled back into that competitive, success-oriented place?
Oh, yeah, I get pulled in every day, just playing ping pong. Yeah, it's definitely like a practice, like a living, breathing practice that you have to return to every day, and it manifests and shows up in like all aspects of my life, and especially in the society that we live in.
Big time over there. I feel like you need to do like a video about this practice of like not holding on so tightly to the wanting and the control of it, and like letting go. Mm-hmm. I thought you were talking about like my love life, right? Like my dating life. I'm like, maybe I'm being too thirsty. But it's business. I think you need to do a video about this.
Yeah.
Karen, like what
and
about
monetize
that? What
it.
about that
Put it behind a
resonated with
paywall.
you?
I got you, girl.
What about that resonated with you?
I mean, everything she just said about, we think that the goal in life is this one thing, and it's the journey. It's I can't say it better than she just did, honestly, but all of it resonated. It resonated in business, resonated in my personal life, as we just heard. It resonated, for everything.
Rachel, as also a former professional soccer player, now operator, running part of a business, what's been your biggest pivot?
Yeah, I want to talk about my pivot. Yes, I pivoted from playing professional soccer, and then I went to a venture firm. But I think what I want to talk about today is the venture firm going into where I am today at Just Women Sports. And Haley Rosen, founder and CEO, started the company in 2020 and was a former teammate of mine as well. And she approached me multiple times to join Just Women Sports. But at the time, I was working at a venture firm. I had mentors within the venture firm that I could learn directly from. I was working with founders in the portfolio company, so I had a lot of opportunity to learn about startups, about those key hires. But she approached me again in 2020 when it was COVID. I had a lot of reflection time, like many of you. I also turned 30, and I think at that time she approached me again and walked me really through the vision of Just Women Sports. And I think I can remember the exact moment. I was waiting for my COVID vaccine with my dad, and we talked through the pros and cons of taking that jump, with leaving a very stable job where I wasn't looking to leave. I really enjoyed the people I was working with. I was learning a ton. But as we were talking through it, I think one, it was Haley's vision around what she wanted to do and what she sees and the problem to go solve was aligned with my passions. And then the second one was I felt like I was in a position where I was ready to take a risk. I think at the venture firm, I was giving advice, and portfolio companies could go and take the advice or not. And I really wanted to go build something myself and see the consequences, whether it was good or bad, but like really see it through and build on my own. So I think going back to those conversations that I had with my dad was super important. And he said, pull up in 2 years and like think of it as an MBA and pull up in 2 years and see what you learn. And we're here 3 years later. I hit 3 years in 2 years, in 2 weeks. And it's a lot of ups and downs, but overall, it's a lot of fun and learning a ton.
It's very cool. Karen, what about you?
I actually have a question. Can I ask
Yeah,
a quick, so you went from being a VC to being a founder, right? Essentially.
I'm operating,
Yeah. Okay. Is it surprising how hard it is?
I knew how hard it is, but yes, it is really, really hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's. I think, but what I think I love about it is, you get to see it every single day, and the building blocks all add up. I think is really what's special about being at a startup.
Yeah. So my biggest pivot was going from the very cushy, lovely womb of Google and YouTube for 10 years, from my mid-20s. 24 to 34 was my Google YouTube demo, and I'm 50, so that's old as fuck. Pardon me. I became a founder in my, I did a pit stop at AOL quickly to help them out with some video stuff. I became a founder, in my early 40s, which is good because I had like more wisdom and knowledge and more money. And so like if I failed, I wasn't gonna starve. But pivoting from sort of that really cushy life, and also companies that don't prepare you for entrepreneurship. Like I wasn't an entrepreneur. I didn't learn anything about entrepreneurship at Google and YouTube. So that pivot from corporate life to running your own business, I'd never seen a P&L before. Like, I was not prepared at all. And so, yeah, that was definitely a shocker. But it led me to where I am now, right? So to your point, it's the journey. At the time, I was like, what did I do? I have 2 sets of dreams. I have an anxiety dream, and it's recurring, like throughout my adult life. An anxiety dream and a happy dream.
Okay.
The anxiety dream is always, I'm lost at my high school. I can't find my locker. And if I do find my locker, I can't remember the combination. I can't get the lock open. It's my recurring anxiety dream.
Oh, so fascinating.
Exactly. My recurring, I'm happy dream is, I cannot believe I'm admitting this in public, is I'm working at Google. Like I'm roaming around the micro kitchens, or I'm like sliding down the slide. And these dreams became very repetitive one way, the other way, as I was starting businesses. It's like, oh my God. So yeah, I don't know what the point of that was, but it runs deep, y'all. It runs deep. Running a business is hard, and it runs deep, and it becomes, you have to regulate, because it can be actually not good for your health. It's important to regulate as a founder. I see some nodding.
I'm curious, what was the biggest challenge that you didn't foresee starting your own business, and what's been easier than you expected?
So I didn't foresee most of the challenges. I didn't really fully appreciate how hard it was going to be to raise VC as a female-founded company. Companies with men and women co-founders do exponentially better in sales, the bottom line, raising VC. So again, for anyone watching this now or in the future, and you are one sex, one gender, pick someone from the other gender, you're going to do better just in the long term. Okay, it goes for men and women. All female founded company. I did not appreciate how excruciatingly difficult it would be to raise VC. We raised one round of VC, really quite successfully. It was a different time and place. It was in 2018, which was like, things were really looking up, things for women. And it's been very hard to raise a Series A. I did not appreciate that the funding gap for women, and I run a company that's trying to solve this problem. I didn't really appreciate how hard it was, and no one saw this sort of world we're living in now coming, and I'll just sort of leave it at that. That was the most surprising, negatively surprising. The most exciting and what continues to bring me to work every day is like, I love what I do. I genuinely love what I do. I love working with founders. I love telling them the true, and getting them to like understand from minute one when they come and pitch me for funding or, to get into the coaching program or to get a grant from, ACFC and JustWorks, whatever it is they're pitching. It's so fun to be able to just listen to them and take a step back and be like, okay, what's the product or service you're selling and who's gonna buy it? Like it comes down to that. From there, it's like this magic happens. So I love my job and it surprises me every day. And I'm really happy to do it.
Well, one thing I would love to hear, because something I think about a lot is we have this motto because re is a prefix and it means again but better. And we've learned a lot that so many C-suite women have sports backgrounds, and that seems really intuitively like that just makes sense to me because in sports you just learn how to fail. You just learn that it's never going to be good enough, no matter what the outcome is. You're always just like, put in a room, in a meeting in front of all of your colleagues and just reamed. Like that is just a Wednesday, And so you get that, it's like a little bit of a toughness, but it's a resilience and it's a skill and it's a practice.
Yeah.
So when you said your first startup was unsuccessful, I'm very curious to hear how that best prepared you in your second endeavor.
Thank you for asking. So, fool me once, okay, fool me twice. So, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm not an athlete, but I came from at Google, they were like, that was part of the algorithm, the hiring algorithm was like, we were looking for Olympic athletes, we were looking for professional athletes, so you're not wrong. Yep. So I learned from my mistakes. I made every rookie founder mistake known to humankind. Perfect was the enemy of done. I took way too long to build our MVP. I failed. I didn't fail fast and cheap. It was long and expensive. Like Reid Hoffman, everyone knows who he is, master scale guy, LinkedIn, VC. He always says, if you're not mortified by your MVP, you're way too late. That was me. I didn't learn lessons from Google, where it's what's the one thing you want the user to do? Just build that, put it out even if it's ugly, and beta test, learn, iterate. I did none of those things. And I kind of knew to do them, but when you're starting your first business and you're so psyched up and you have money, that's a problem too, by the way. We need to have many conversations. Totally. You get way in over your skis on building and there was so many bells and whistles. It was so many mistakes that I learned. So when we launched IFundWomen with the proceeds from our Kickstarter, which is how first startup was failing as a Hail Mary to make payroll. And I was like, I'm not putting any of my money into this company anymore because we are failing. We did a Kickstarter. This was back in summer of 2016. And I was like, how hard can this be, crowdfunding? Aren't there magical money elves that come out of the sky and rain on your campaign because you have a cute video and you're popular? By the way, that's not how it works. And I found that out very quickly. And so crowdfunding is just sales and marketing. I'm good at that. So we raised the money, we pivoted. I was like, wait, raising cash for your business should be the first thing you do. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, to prove demand for your product or service before you invest in supply. And by supply, I mean wasting years of your life trying to chase an equity round, or supply buying inventory or building product or whatever it is. So I totally don't remember the question, but I'm seemingly on a roll of some sort. What was the question?
Well, how did your failure prepare you? And
The failure prepared. Yeah, the failure. I learned from it.
Yeah.
Like we did 1,000 things wrong. I learned, and then we did them. So to wrap it up, thank you. To wrap it up with IFundWomen, we raised $30,000 from our Kickstarter, and a bunch of people's credit cards didn't work, and then Kickstarter took their fees. So I think we netted $24,000. And we had to fulfill our rewards. We had to do what we said we were going to do in the Kickstarter, and we took $14,000, and that's how we built IFundWomen on a WordPress site with a crowdfunding plugin and Squarespace product marketing pages on subdomains, and a Slack community for customer service. We called her Frankenstein. And I went on Swapbox like a G and launched her. And was like, please don't break. And the rest is history. So I learned. You can take $14,000 and launch something. And if people want to use the product and there's a need, it will work.
I think it's interesting. Definitely going from sports to being in startups, for sure, fail fast. I think another thing, and I'm curious if you agree with this, is control what you can control. And I think I learned that in playing sports, but also now at a startup, it's control what you can control and focus on that, because there's going to be so many other things that are around there. There can be so many other things thrown your way, and as long as you stay focused, prioritize, I think is a huge thing that we continue to tell our team at Just Women Sports is where you'll stay focused and hopefully see things through. So I think
what can you control? Because I want to know.
I think
for real.
Yeah, I think it's yeah.
She's an operator. I'm not. So I'm always learning.
I think it's around the vision and staying there's going to be a lot of people telling you should do this, you should do that, but I think it's being very clear with your vision, with yourself, but also with the team, and making sure they prioritize. I think it's setting really clear goals. I think it's about we were talking about being intentional with your culture, doing that early around your hiring. So a lot of those things, but obviously there's going to be one example is that we bank with SVB and did not see that coming. And so control what you can control, and you'll figure it out. But yeah, that there's gonna be so many challenges throughout, and so it's just a roller coaster. So.
It's great advice.
It's clear that there's an edge that you have moving from sports into business. But I'm curious what that transition was like, and that identity shift from going from professional athlete and still being a professional athlete, but then stepping into that kind of business owner hat. What is that like? Is there Rachel or Kristen?
Yeah, I definitely don't feel like a shift, right? Because I'm just doing both. I just have both my hands in both cookie jars. But I think one thing that was really the inspiration for my business was obviously our World Cup journey, which was also an equal pay fight. So just to give a little context, back in 2014, 2015, when I went to my first World Cup with the U.S. Women's National Team in Canada, we won that World Cup and came back to the United States with all of our lives having drastically changed, unknown to us, right? We're in a bubble, we're competing game after game, we don't see anybody, and then you come back and then your whole life has changed, you get stopped on the streets, that's never happened before, you have 1 million people following you and you don't even understand what social media is, and it just happened like that, right? And so much of our lives shifted, and the way that we were resourced and provided for and treated by our employer was the only thing that didn't. And so that recognition led us to file a lawsuit for equal pay, and we started by re-upping our Players Association, which I always say is the first business I started, which I didn't start because we had a Players Association, but it was kind of just obsolete. We got information, we brought everybody together, and we started a movement.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, you
We
did, girl.
And it was actually it's insane to think about, because all the while that we're doing this, we're also competing at the highest level in our sport. And after meals, we're having meetings and doing strategy of how we're gonna possibly like go into this like litigation or this like lawyer meeting. Like it's insane. And it was incredibly inspiring, and we kept hearing, and at the same time we kept hearing, you know, you're not worth it, essentially. The market realities are such that we cannot pay the women what we pay the men. The market realities are such. And while that was happening, we had to create a voice in our own head that said, we are worth it. And every single time someone said, you're not worth it, we said, we are worth it. And our voice had to be louder. And like, that was exhausting. But we were supported by the fact that a lot of people in the world that weren't sitting in those meetings necessarily, they were with us. And that's when I recognized that so many of our jobs, we were really carrying a torch on behalf of a lot of other people. That's the privilege of playing for your national team and putting on your country's flag as your uniform, right? You're representing a lot more than yourself. And so when we went to the 2019 World Cup, we were in France, and I think one of the moments that changed my life and really inspired me to truly understand the power of being an entrepreneur was when we won, and everyone would have thought in the stadium that people would be cheering USA, but they were cheering equal pay. And that's when I really understood the power of what we were trying to do. We weren't even in the United States. It was a global phenomena. And I think that was kind of the platform that led me to want to be an entrepreneur and to want to build something that was bigger than my legacy as a soccer player could ever be. And I think it was a commonality. Like, we were fighting for ourselves to be paid better. And like, that was something we had to get comfortable with. That's not very comfortable for women. And we were also fighting for the next generation, and we were also fighting for other women in other industries. And so I started to see the commonalities between all of us and recognize that that could become something so much more. And I think, and this is really long-winded, so I apologize, but I think like the other thing that I started learning as I became like athlete entrepreneur was that the kind of the sacred nature of a women's sports locker room doesn't happen everywhere. And it was an absolute privilege. It is an absolute privilege to be around strong, unapologetic women that live their truth, that aren't thinking about the male gaze, that aren't thinking about, outside judgment. It is us. We are teammates. We are enemies. We are all the things. We are the whole ecosystem. And it is so liberating. And so my idea from when I went to college all the way until now of like what women are and can be came from this very isolated and specific culture. And I think that when I am, outside of sports and in my wearing my entrepreneurial hat, I really want that culture to transcend, because I think it is a luxury. It was a privilege, but I think it's what everyone resonated so much when they followed the U.S. Women's National Team fight. It was like the thing people liked the most was watching us all like drink beer after the game, right? Like, of all the things, that's like what inspired people, because it was just a picture of, of what we call now gal culture, of people being themselves, with people living outside of the patriarchy and that like kind of like hand that's always on you, always like shifting you down. So yeah, a lot of work to do still.
An incredible story.
So inspiring. Yay. Keep doing it, girl.
Thank you.
It's a hard story to follow. But before we open it up to the audience for questions, Rachel, Karen, anything else you want to add or share?
Rachel, please.
I would say, so I know there's people in the audience that might think about pivoting their career, and there were a few questions my dad asked me when I was making that pivot that I wanted to share with you, and hopefully it helps you guys. One, are you in a position where you can? Are you financially? Do you have a family? Do you have a partner? Do you have other commitments you can't change? Or are you in a location where you're gonna have to move? So that was one. Two, I know there's also VCs in the room. Like, did you do your research? Did you look at the team, the product, the market? Is there a problem to be solved? Three, what are you gonna learn that you're not learning at your current job? And I think the biggest one is like, what does your gut say? And I think all those questions I asked myself, I discussed it with my dad, and I think those were all the questions that led me to be at Just Women Sports and allowed me to have that expectation and go into it with a really positive mindset. So hopefully that helps anyone who's looking to make that pivot.
Cool. Yeah, I could not agree more, and I would also say that when entrepreneurs come to us, and these entrepreneurs are working at FANG companies, they're working in tech, they're working in finance, they're working, really great jobs, and they come and they're so excited. Karen, I have this idea for such and such, and I'm quitting my job at when it was called Facebook. Like, we had so many Facebook people. Erase that, but we did. We had so many people coming to say, like, I'm quitting my job. I'm like, oh, no, you're not. Do not quit your good day job with the benefits and the salary to start a business. You do it in your 20% time. You do it in your spare time, nights, weekends, until you have customers and revenue. Like, how are you going to pay your bills? Like, how are you going to, where's your insurance going to come from? So I think that your advice is so important for anyone starting a business. Like, you have to be at the real top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs to be okay to make the decision to start a business. So,
Great.
but if you are, do it.
Elizabeth is over here with a microphone, so if anyone has a question, raise your hand. We'll bring it to you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Oh, we have a question.
Congratulations to all of you, because as a startup founder, I know I'm in it right now, and taking the lumps and learning from those mistakes. I always say failure is the fast track to success, because then you know exactly what not to do. So, but I want to ask, especially as women disruptors, disrupting spaces, what has the journey been like for you to find mentors and people who would actually tell you? I'm in the whiskey industry. There's no YouTube video on how to start a whiskey business. It's been very challenging to find those partners and find those mentors and find that information. We've done it, but it's been, a very more challenging than I ever imagined. What has that journey been like for you guys?
So I can take this. Yeah.
So
This is truly like why I started IFundWomen. So we have so many women of color, who are in the alc bev business. So whether it's wine, whiskey, beer, and you're paving a whole new road. There is nobody coming before you. So first of all, like, good on you. Like, congratulations for paving this road. Yes, 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 yes. So definitely the community of women in alc bev, they're there. So come over to IFundWomen. There's like peers. Mentorship is tricky, right? Because, there's mentorship and then there's coaching. For us, coaching on specific micro topics related to starting businesses and different sectors is what at least we have found that's helpful for founders. It helps them raise more money. It helps them make more money. Mentorship is great. And we found that within the peer network, that's where the mentorship is happening versus, people that have come before, because we're all paving a way in our own specific ways. So we welcome you to IFundWomen. What's the name of your company? Jackson McCrae. I've seen you. I just saw you recently.
LA Man.
Yes.
The welcome cocktail.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations. Say it louder so everyone can go buy this.
Jackson McCrae whiskey.
Where can they get it?
You're all going to get it in your gift bags, too.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. That's awesome.
Something I would add to that, I am obsessed with mentorship. I love when I have someone who's just clearly senior to me, just telling me what's what. And I love mentoring when there's, younger people coming. And one piece of advice that I got that I thought was really great, especially for women in this space, is be mentored by, the good men. Because men have so much information and access that we don't have currently, that there are a few good men, see some here, and when you find them and partner with them, it has been a huge blessing in my own life to have people who have seen the playbook before and have done it, and maybe they did it with a different point of view, and you're going to face different challenges, but it was really important for me to have that perspective and balance.
Hi, this has been lovely. Thank you all. I'm curious, there's this notion in entrepreneurship that like when you start a business that someday you're gonna make it, like you're gonna have the signal that you cross the finish line, and I'm sure that you three know that that isn't necessarily true. There's always like the next hill to climb. So I'm curious what the signals are, like what are the things you look for either on a day-to-day, small or big, that you're still on the right path and headed in the right direction?
You want to take this one?
We were just talking a lot.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. Huh? I think it starts with what I was saying before. It starts with being really intentional on kind of your short-term and mid-term and then long-term goals. And I think you're ultimately, to your point, like trying to see the ultimate vision and that quote-unquote endpoint that you're going to get to. But it's those baby steps, crawl, walk, run, how you're going to get there. And I think setting those intentional goals and hitting those milestones that help you, like propel you to keep going, I think is what's really important. And so I would say being intentional on setting those and then hitting those milestones, or seeing how you're not hitting those and kind of either resetting them or figuring out, like learning from how you're not hitting them. So I would say very tactical answer, that's how I would approach it.
Do you remember at Stanford, so we played together in college, do you remember that it was like on a wall and it said, you're either getting better, you're getting worse, you never stay the same?
Yeah.
That is what I would answer. I would say it's all about momentum. And like, I'm not close to we made it, like not even close. So I have no idea why I'm answering. But what I look for is forward progress. And I'm a big energy person. Like I'm like that person that like buys my house like with my eyes closed. Like, how did it make me feel? And I look for like the light in my team's eyes. Like, is it bright? Are they energized? And my community, like, are they active? Are they engaged? I really try to look for forward progress. And even when I was listening to your stories about, moving too slow or spending too much, it's like, it doesn't look like you're going backwards. It just looks like you're staying the same. But staying the same is going backwards in this world. And you don't have a day. You don't have a day to stay the same. And so I think it's how you find through the different vessels, where the energy can come from. And like no leaky valves, like, fill all the leaky valves and make sure that you're getting energy and momentum each day, even if it's really, really small. But if you're going in the right direction, I think you'll always be okay.
I'm going to say that it's hard. So it's very sort of like this idea of IFundWomen is a very big idea, right? And so like I want to get richer because I want to fund women for the rest of my life, and I want my employees to get rich, and I want our entrepreneurs to get rich. All the money for all the women now. That's like our hashtag. It's real long, but like all the money for all the women now. So like when you're starting a company called IFundWomen, like all I'm thinking about is like making all the women rich. Like that's my like North Star, KPI. It is funding volume for women entrepreneurs. And so it's very hard for IFundWomen Incorporated to not get caught up in, okay, we're exiting to XYZ type of institution and what that looks like, and that's where it gets hard for me, right? Because I definitely can envision who we exit to, what kind of institution, how much it is, what, where the brand is taken from there, how we can exponentially increase funding, how the money affects in a positive way our employees and our communities. So like I am a big I visualize I'm not a believer in manifestation. It's like we're working hard every day towards like all the money for all the women now. So it's hard to like not have a leaky valve. It's hard to. It's a very. It's challenging, but I know we're gonna get there. It's a great question. That made me think, Julia, with a J. It's a good one.
I think that's all the time we have for today. I want to say thank you so much to our panelists. This has been amazing. Thank you to Angel City for hosting us. And a few quick things. One, we have drinks and food afterwards, so please stick around. We also have some lovely gifts for you from some of the other Angel City partners. There's Nike swag, there's Birdie swag. Please take flowers. But once again, thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.